Hi, I'm Lisa Bauman, and welcome to Let's Talk Careers. Today, you're going to listen in on Colleen Holmes Cummings' story. She's a fitness technologist, an absolute lioness who has pursued multiple post-secondary degrees and diplomas, building her career in the fitness industry. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. So welcome, Colleen. I'm going to get you to start by introducing yourself, if that's okay. And I'm going to get you to do what I call the James Bond style of interviewing or of introducing themselves. The reason I do it is because we have a terrible memory. And so when we repeat our name a couple of times, right, then it helps us to remember who we are. And then we don't have to be like, what was that person's name again? So I always say first name and then a pause and then first name and then last name. And then just say your current role and then something that you're really keen on.
All right, so I'm Colleen Holmes Cumming.
Perfect.
I am very keen on all forms of exercise. Mm-hmm. I have had a very active life, and I love what I do.
Yeah.
I've been intermixed with more traditional kind of individual exercise, as well as group and team exercise.
Yeah.
And I've always loved exercise.
Yeah.
I often say it's funny because I wouldn't consider myself a natural athlete.
Okay.
I have to work for it.
Okay.
But I love the process of the work.
Cool. So what do you do at the college? You're here at Conestoga College. So tell me a little bit about what you do.
I have been blessed to be at Conestoga College for 24 years.
Amazing. Congratulations.
I did 4 years part-time. I'm in my 20th year of full-time now. And I'm the fitness technologist for community safety.
Yep.
I work with an amazing team. I also do some part-time faculty work for human services and for rec and leisure.
Awesome. Yes, that's perfect. So I'm going to go back right to the very beginning, kind of like the very beginning. What was your first paid job, sort of either as a very young person or upon graduation of sort of that first, degree, diploma?
If you want to go back to prehistoric times, I babysat.
Really?
Yeah, babysat children in the community. I lived in a very tiny little town called Oil City, and it's down near Sarnia, Petrolia area.
Okay.
It's a
That's
little
Oil
tiny,
City.
very tiny town.
Okay.
Basically, we have 5 roads and one crosses 4.
Wow.
So everybody knows everybody. Kind of town.
Yeah. What did you do sort of after that? Take me from babysitting into sort of a little bit of where you are today. Take me from that.
Okay. Well, early in my educational career, I like to say it was a mistake, but I don't believe we make mistakes.
No,
I think it's a part of your journey.
Yeah.
I was a little bit lazy in high school, and I could have pulled off A's, but chose to milk the B's and C's.
Sure, yeah.
Back when I was very young, I wanted to be either a veterinarian or a phys ed teacher.
Okay. So then what happened from there?
Then I went into hairdressing school, went through the whole process, hated it.
Really?
Just hated it.
Okay.
And did that for less than a year.
Okay.
And got married very young and had 3 amazing children, the best part of my life for my children, without question. And my life changed. So I started to do some part-time stuff at that point in my life. But the big point in my life that really changed, and I don't know how far we want to go into this.
Go for it.
Was my youngest son getting cancer.
Okay.
And I was pretty much a little quiet kitten until then. And then I had to become this lioness for the sake of my son.
Yeah, advocating.
Constantly. Because when you're lost in that environment, and so many families are, you really have to advocate for what's best for your son.
Right.
So
wow.
That changed me from the kitten to the lioness real fast. After that point, unfortunately, my marriage didn't survive that kind of tragedy because we lost our son.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It was a long time ago now. And I'm honored to have called him my son. Right. Yeah. So I went out with my other 2 children, and I was a single mom. Yeah. And so I started working at a YMCA.
Okay.
And it's really ironic that I started working in maintenance because, you know, I did some cleaning of houses. So that's where I started.
Okay.
They brought in a new fitness guru. He was supposed to redesign the fitness program.
Okay.
Named Andy Key. And if he sees this, he'll be charged that I said his name.
Wonderful.
Anyway, so Andy said to me one day, he says, you know, you're really great with people. Why don't you try fitness?
Okay.
You obviously work, you know, you're working out here. You're liking this.
Yeah.
So why don't you try that? And so I took one course and then I took another.
I love it.
And then I took another and eventually over time accumulating about 50 certifications in health and fitness.
Neat. That's amazing.
In that process, and I was a single mom, so I had to find new ways of making money. I was downsized out of the YMCA.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, so now you're a single mom and you've got no income.
Yeah.
Panic, right?
Yeah.
So looked at everything I could find. Took some courses on entrepreneurial management. And came across Conestoga. They needed some fitness instructors just to teach some courses, random courses here and there.
Yep.
And so then I started having all these part-time jobs. At one point, I had 7 different gyms going at the same time.
Wow.
In, one, Ingersoll, Woodstock, Brantford, and Conestoga at Doon.
Wow.
All at the same time. I just drove constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly driving to do all these different kind of pods.
Yeah.
While I was at Conestoga, I met an amazing mentor, amazing, named Dwayne Shad.
Yep.
Love him like family now.
Nice.
He's now retired.
Yep.
But what a gift to Conestoga. He'd been there for 43 years.
I actually ran into him the other day.
Oh, did you?
I did, yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
excellent.
I did, and I told him that I get to chat with you, and I was really excited.
I'm sure he had a lot to say.
Yeah.
All
positive.
Oh yes, he was my mentor, my greatest fan, my greatest support for so many years. We worked together for 23 years, and it all happened like that.
Yeah.
I was teaching a fitness class, and it was right at exam time. And exam time fitness, you know, students don't do fitness at exam time. But I still had the contract, so I was there, and there was no one there. And he came in, and he started talking to me, and we hit it off like so quickly.
Yeah,
you know, it was instant.
Yeah.
You know, and if you've ever had the pleasure of meeting Dwayne Shad, you know he just embraces everybody. He's that guy.
He is. Yeah.
I can't imagine that man having an enemy on this planet at all because he's that guy.
I always remember him in the hallways pre-pandemic. He would say hello to every single person.
Yeah, and just it's funny because so many people say to me, and I laugh every time I hear it, that he's like Hal from Participation Canada.
I see you. Yeah, okay.
He is that personality. He's still out there. And then they say, are you Joanne? I said, well, no.
No.
I'm not Joanne. She's way more perky than, you know, I have to be the Sarge. And we can talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we met that one day. He came in and started talking to me. And then he would pop in now and then. We'd have little mini conversations around my fitness class. And one day he came in to me and he said, here's the thing. He said, right now they're thinking about taking academic fitness and making it a contract position and bringing in contractors from outside.
Okay.
And he said, are you interested? And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, that means working with, at the time, it was paramedic, police foundations. Right. It was called law and security at that time. Now it's protection and security investigations and firefighting.
Right.
And I said, okay, sure.
I'm interested.
He said, well, they're talking in about 2 hours. So you have less than 2 hours to make your pitch.
Okay.
And I went, okay, so I got on the phone with the man I was seeing at the time. I said, I need my power suit and I need it now. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, this is going down. Right. And I walked in the room and I presented myself and I walked out of the room and went, oh my God, what did I just do? What did I just agree to do? And
Incredible.
They gave me the offer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me just pause here for a minute, because that really kind of reminds me of this kind of element in career theory that talks about the chaos theory of careers. Okay. And what it is that there's these elements that we think that are, completely random, but then on a reflection, they were like meant to be. Like, it's not serendipity. It was like these things were sort of setting us up for that next piece, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was, a moment in time where I said yes, and I went for it. And I'll never forget the very first day of walking into the gym with these massive firefighter type guys that towered over me. And I looked around and went, oh my, in my head I went, what did you agree to do? Like, what did you sign on for? Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It turns out like it was, I love what I do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I do a lot of different things, but working with Pre-Service Fire, Police Foundation, and that's my primary role with them now. It's just those two services.
Yeah.
I really love what I do.
So tell me a little bit. I happen to know just a teeny little bit about this part about you because we've chatted before. And I'm curious to know, what was that like? Kind of, if we kind of dial back, like you said, you've been with the college for 20 years. So
20 full-time and 4 part-time.
So we'll dial back to what, the 80s, 90s?
90s? Late 90s.
Okay. So what was that like, kind of jumping into this field?
That's a whole other piece, because there was only one other female in the entire province doing that more male gendered position.
Right.
And going back to, once again, Dwayne Shadd he had my back 24/7 all the time.
Yeah.
And huge promoter of females in the industry, in all industries. He's that guy.
Yeah.
Once again, he's that guy, right? And had him backing me 24/7.
Yeah.
I can't even express words about how important his mentorship means to me.
Yeah.
Almost brings tears to my eyes, how like he's family to me.
Yeah.
And I'm collaborating with his daughter now, Crystal Shadd, which is just that much better. Like it's just, it's Dwayne 2.0, right? It's just even better.
Yeah. And so do you have any kind of, experiences during that time that you can be like, wow, that really, I pushed through, or I really, dove into this and I took on it, and just something around kind of pushing through that boundary, pushing through that pushing through that challenge.
Pushing through that challenge. You're really jogging my memory here. COVID was a big challenge.
Oh my gosh, yes.
For fitness.
Yes.
Fitness and sport had a huge evolution based on COVID because we couldn't be around each other. Right.
So what did you do? Like, how did...
Well, we're used to being 3D. We tried to teach a fitness class in motion and stream it. But then we found out people in India were on delay by 20 seconds, so it doesn't work. Right. Doing that kind of streaming on something called, basically on Zoom, cannot service people fast enough. Right. Based on the fact that we're streaming it to 40 houses in a minute. Yeah. So what we found a way to do is we went over to Rim Park. Okay. I live close by there. We moved over to Rim Park, and we brought a little tablet, and we videotaped 120 different exercises. Okay. And so we'd play these for our students and have them conduct them for a timed amount of time. Right. And then we move on to the next exercise. Right. Because, certain challenges that we've learned since COVID and since international students have become a huge and important part of Conestoga College. Absolutely. We had to find a better way to relate to these different personalities and these different types of learners. Yeah. Yeah. And how did that work out then? Well, it worked out okay. Yeah. I wouldn't say it was gold. I would say it would be a tarnished bronze at best. We did not win the race on that one. Okay. We did the best we could under the conditions, and as everybody did under those conditions. Yeah. Education has changed forever because of COVID. Absolutely. Absolutely changed forever, for good and bad. Yeah. Like our ability at Conestoga to develop like that.
Yes.
Like we were all in panic mode. We were like, it was a marathon. It was not a sprint, but it was a lot of, how do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? Right. Yeah. And I always had what I'd call maybe a B grade of computer skills, but we had to take it to an A+ real fast. Right. Yeah. You know, as a team, it was okay. Like we all had our meetings on my porch because we had no place to go. So we did it on my porch. Right. Because we were outside, at least we could breathe there.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And even during COVID, when we first started, Dwayne came and sat in my living room and we spaced ourselves 6 feet apart. Crazy. And he was on one computer and I was on another. And that's how we taught. Wow. For about the first month.
Wow. Wow. I really love that notion of mentorship that you've kind of elemented in here. And if we were to sort of think about what we would want to tell students about sort of finding a mentor or mentoring others, what would be the piece of information you might want to share?
Oh, I wish I could say I had a big thought on this, but I was blessed. Yeah. I often think that my particular angel, my son, sought out Dwayne and knew that Dwayne would be the person for me. Right. I don't think I chose fitness. I think fitness chose me.
Yeah. So tell me more about that, because a lot of people sort of think, oh, I have to find the perfect career and I have to be there forever. And, and like I keep thinking more about that notion of calling, right? About we are called to this, and it's sort of sounding like fitness called you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The day that Andy Keys said to me, you'd be good at this, and I took one course, and then I got a little addicted. Like I've taken so much education. Yeah. I thought, like most people think, going into education, I'll take this one thing and I'll be set for life. But education over time is a constant evolution in order to get to where you need to be. Right. Right. My educational background, like I said, I took these 50 certifications, and then I was at Conestoga, and I thought, well, I'm right here. I could take courses, right? Right. So I took various courses. I took, I think the very first certification I took was Office Microsoft. Okay. And it just taught me about Word and Excel and things that I use every day. Right. And it was, God, it feels like forever ago when I took those courses. Yeah. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll start doing a few little things. And I took the General Arts and Science course, all part-time. Yep. One here, one there, one there. One summer I took 7 courses. Wow. And because of that, Paul Osborne, he's almost leaving Conestoga, a great loss again for Conestoga in his retirement. He came to me, and he's with promotions and marketing. Right. And he came to me, he says, well, you've done all these online courses. Would you be interested in being the cover on the Con Ed book? Yeah. Back then we had a paper copy. I don't think we do that anymore.
No, I don't think so. So I actually remember your picture. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And I thought, well, how bad can it be? Yeah. A couple hundred copies. How bad can it be? So we went through this whole process and did the photo shoot and blah, 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 which, and that's not my thing. It's funny. I have no problem being in front of students. Right. But this microphone, like, holy crap. It's
But I keep thinking about how much you put yourself out there. Like it seems like you're so willing to put yourself out there. You said yes to this right away. It sounds like you're going to say yes to the marketing, piece. Like you put yourself out there, right?
Yeah, I did. And, sometimes, it's funny, but maybe it's an Aries thing. I'm an Aries. So Aries, we jump out and then, oh crap, there's no water in the pool. And now we got to figure that out, right? I say yes too often, too quickly sometimes. And good thing and a bad thing, all the same.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, I hear you. But I've often heard that piece of advice where it's like, say yes, even if you're afraid to say yes. And I know that that's sort of how certain pieces of my career have kind of unfolded, is that I was petrified to say yes, said yes, and went, oh, okay, now I got to figure this out.
I'm going to have to figure this out. But anyway, so Paul Osborne came to me, and so I did end up on the cover, and I thought, 200 copies, whatever. And then I found out there's 3,500 copies. And I was like, oh my God. And people would say to me, hey, you're in my bathroom. I'm like, why do you think I'm in your bathroom? It was an awesome opportunity, but a little overwhelming after the fact.
Sure.
because my face was everywhere.
Yeah, everybody connected you with
exactly,
Conestoga.
exactly.
I love that you did the GAS program as well. Yeah. What else did you do? Because the GAS is General Arts and Science.
Right.
The School of Interdisciplinary Studies, which I'm affiliated with, also delivers the General Arts and Science program. So I think that's amazing. What else did you do?
And then I did Rec and Leisure.
Okay.
And then I did the Volunteer Management program.
Nice.
And then, for whatever reason, I thought I was bored and decided to do a BA in Rec and Leisure.
Nice.
And so I did that through Brock.
Okay.
And then I thought, just randomly one day I thought, I'm going to do my master's.
Nice.
And it's another one of those jump off the cliff and, there's no water down there.
What am I doing?
Exactly. So I did my master's while I taught full time. And that was 18 months of pure hell. Yeah, that was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I've got to commend my husband, Holmes-Cumming, who, God, he read all that documentation, just endless. And I thought, when I do my thesis, I might need to find another support.
Right.
And I found Debashis at the college.
Yeah.
And Debashis, oh my God, he was so amazing with my thesis.
Nice.
I did my thesis on the glass ceiling for women in policing.
Nice.
And it was 178 pages and
Incredible.
34 pages of referencing. I met amazing people in that process in the police services industry, especially women who are just trendsetters, like just amazing.
Right.
So, it's funny because I said to my son, I said, when I'm done my master's, I'm not doing any more education. Well, no. He laughed at me out loud. He said, no, that's not who you are, Mom. And I went, sure it is. I'm not doing any more education. So now I've almost completed the teaching certificate for Conestoga College, through the micro-credentials. Yep. Like I'm just waiting on the final piece of that coming up shortly.
Wonderful.
But I might, my educational system and my CV is now like 8 pages long. Like it's endless. Yeah. With volunteers.
Incredible.
I've received a couple fitness awards and sport. I've received something I'm really proud of is Women of, now that I can think of the title of it, Trendsetter Women of Conestoga College. I received that just as the pandemic hit.
Amazing.
And they were going to have this nice ceremony. Me and Carolyn Harrison received it that same year together.
Nice.
And she was in my department. She's retired now. Yeah. And I was thinking, I get to share this with Carolyn. How great. And then boom. Yeah. COVID. Everything changed after, after, what was it, March
2020.
Yeah, March 13th, Friday the 13th, the whole world changed.
It sure did. I have that ingrained in my memory as well. So many things of your story I can relate to. I went back to school I went to school in my 20s. I went back to school in my 30s. I went back to school in my 40s. And now I'm thinking about going back to school again.
And what are you going to do?
So I'm looking at a coaching certificate. So it's the University of British Columbia organizational coaching
nice.
That I'm thinking about.
Nice.
Yeah. So putting together the package.
Excellent.
You mentioned, we can talk about Sarge a little while ago. So I want to explore.
Every student that
sees
this has ever met me going,
What does that mean?
Well, it's something that
I feel like there's a connection between Sarge and women and breaking glass ceilings.
The firefighters nicknamed me that quite some time ago. Okay. And some of them, I think it was back, I'm thinking maybe 15 years ago that got attached to me. And it's funny how it just keeps on flowing every so often. Yeah. But I remember going to a firefighter year-end dinner. Sometimes they do a year-end ceremony that's separate, like it's more firefighter-based. And I remember one of the people introducing me as, so your arms hurt and your legs hurt and you can't get out of bed in the morning. Let me please introduce Colleen Holmes Cumming.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And they used to, another student I remember saying to Dwayne, he said, I'd ask her, but she scares me a little. Oh. And Dwayne said, someday she scares me too. Okay. I think in being a female in that particular industry, and as I've come through it for 24 years, Now it's not so, it's more mainstream to have women in it, but then I had to be tougher, stronger, and more intense than a male would have to be in those fields.
Yeah.
I had one of my greatest compliments in my career came from Dwayne Shad when he said to me when I met him, he said, okay, you're a tiny, short little redhead. You're going to have to earn every dime you get here.
Wow. And
I went, okay. And then he came back to me and, or every nickel, he said to me, or every penny or something like that.
Yeah.
And so he came back to me about 6 months later. He says, you don't earn nickels, you earn dimes.
Nice. Yeah. So, and that's just like credibility and impact, right?
When your mentor says that to you, deep, right?
But think about it also from the fact that you put in all that time to get that credibility and you had that impact on people, right? Like you got the compliment from your mentor as well, which is obviously wonderful. But think about all those people that you earn that, right? You earn that respect, you earn that credibility, you have that impact on all of those other students, right?
That's extremely nice of you to say. The first time one of my students called me a mentor, I was blown away by that. It felt weird. It felt like a weird word to me.
Why?
I don't know. Okay. She said to me, and she said, now a police officer with Waterloo Regional Cambridge area somewhere. Yeah. That was years ago. And when she said it to me, it floored me. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's funny how people see you and you don't necessarily see yourself in those shoes, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I was very honored that she said it, but it felt really weird when she did.
Yeah. So do you continue to mentor students then now?
I think so. Still a very strong advocate for women in policing and fire. Yeah. I'm tough on them. I don't baby them. I'll tell you, you know, especially firefighters. I said that you might learn to hate me.
Right.
But I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because you might have a person.
I said, you want to fight with fire.
Absolutely.
I'm not fire.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You throw water on me, I get quiet.
Yeah.
Fire can fight back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and I've said that to my students all the time. I'll say, you know, you can think I'm tough, but I'm not holding the gun.
No. Yeah. Yeah,
never will shoot you.
Such an impact.
So,
such an impact. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, people are wanting to go through you, especially as a female. You know, if you get somebody that's going to be arrested, they are a caged rat, and they will fight. Yeah. And they will look at what they perceive as the smallest or weakest of the bunch and go after them. Yeah. So as a female, you got to be tougher, stronger, and more in their face. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I've met the most wonderful female police officers in my career and saw so many students go into that field. That's a huge, to me, that's a win. Yeah. When I can see females be exceptional in their field, even though it's a male-dominant field. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I want to shift gears a little bit because, you know, you said you've been with the college for 24 years and you're sort of thinking about what's next. And I'm curious to know what might be in your future and your, you know, as you kind of come around to, different opportunities that might present itself. What do you see happening in your future in the next little while? Well, since I've got my master's, I've been very blessed with some chairs like Laurie Sauvé. Yes. Marv Mustin. Yeah. They're wonderful people. They have channeled me. Marv keeps saying to me, you know, you should be using that master's more, which is really nice of him to say because, it is a steady uphill climb for anybody wanting to go into faculty. Right. It's a process. It's not, you don't get to walk into it at Conestoga. You have to climb the hill. Climb that hill. So I've had opportunities from them. Laurie started providing me with opportunities in continuing education, which is funny because I was on the cover and then I was teaching in it, right? Nice. So that was sort of ironic. That was, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. And I've taught in the spring program for Laurie for a number of years. I think since COVID, I've been doing group dynamics for her. Yep. And Marv had me do conflict management in the gas program this past summer. Yep. And now I'm teaching in Rec and Leisure, enjoying my time with that team. They're so dynamic. It brings me back to my original roots of those 50 certifications that were all play, fun, and sport, right? Yeah, so. Yeah. So where am I going with it? I don't know.
You don't know.
I do have a part-time business.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So my business is Red Rock Fitness and nutritional counseling.
Nice.
And so the latest piece of my puzzle, my portfolio, is metabolic balance.
Okay.
I'm a metabolic balance practitioner. And
Cool.
what does that mean?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, what is that?
What is that, right? So that means I work with doctors in Germany, and we actually create meal programs specifically for each individual.
Okay.
Okay, so you can have an identical twin, and what you need from food
Still would be different.
and what they need from food could be totally different.
Okay.
So what happens is we send our clients in to get blood tests, and your normal doctor is going to order 5 or 6 different types of blood parameters, right?
Okay.
But these go into 18 to 24 different parameters of looking at types of blood right down to the core of your DNA.
Wow.
So then that information, your likes, your dislikes, your health issues, all get sent over to Germany, and they create a plan that's specifically for your DNA.
Okay.
And what it does do, it decreases inflammation, pounds drop off. The very first client I had to be was myself. I lost 28 pounds in I think 8 weeks.
Wow.
Like it just fell off me. Every time I got on the scale, I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Wow.
Just by eating what my body needed.
Right.
And what I needed apparently was more fat. I didn't have enough fat in my diet.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so that's what I'm doing, and I have a handful of clients right now. I'm really enjoying it.
Right.
And I think that's my evolution as I look at the big retirement one day.
Yes.
Where I'm at with that, I don't know day to day.
Yep.
I'm too active and too hyper, for lack of a better word, to be retired.
Yes. That's something that I think I'm noticing a lot, is that people sort of, you know, as I'm in my 50s, I have no problem sharing that with people. But so I'm sort of thinking about that next step, right? And it's like, well, even if I retired at 60 or 65, am I just going to do nothing? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people are thinking that way as well. And that, you know, we're healthier, we're living longer, we have an impact that we want to continue to make. And what is that impact going to look like? So this is something that I've become quite interested in thinking about, right? It's not like, I don't know, our parents' retirement where they they were just done, right? Yeah.
And I also teach for the City of Waterloo. I teach Pilates for them 3 times a week, and I'm enjoying that. The City of Waterloo is a great team.
Yes.
Excellent team. Kendra Brindle is, Prindle, that is. She is a great leader, and I love working with her and with the city. So I'm sort of spreading out. I don't want to work every hour of my life.
No, perhaps not.
And I probably won't do. I say I won't do any more education. Well, it's a possibility that I won't.
Know.
You know. But anyway, I've had my educational journey has started from a single course to master's, which I'm most proud of.
Yeah, incredible.
And
a lot of people who are kind of like thinking about that back to school, they ask me like, how do I do a course? And how do I do that? I'm like, just like you did, one course at a time. One thing leads to the next thing, and the next thing, you've completed a master's degree with, what did you say, 178-page thesis on breaking women in the glass ceiling, breaking the glass ceiling. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's incredible. I want to ask two kind of questions, which is sort of in the fitness industry, where do you or this industry overall, however you want to define that, where do you see things going in, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see things going?
Well, that's a loaded question, because we're looking at COVID changed the gym membership forever. Right. I think gyms that survived were more gyms like CrossFit gyms, because they catered to the 25 to 35 range. Right. And I think they came back to fitness and sport quicker than most people, just for sanity purposes.
Okay.
I'm a huge advocate for mental health and fitness coinciding. I
100%.
don't think we know it.
Yeah.
We talk about it.
Yeah.
But the application from those that are working in mental health, I think they're missing the point. They talk about it, but they don't make that part of the prescription for recovery from mental health issues. And I think that is going to be a big impact. COVID really hit that high school age group, mental health wise, so intensely. The isolation and the ease of isolation. It was easy to sit in your room and hide behind your computer.
Yeah.
But that social interaction that is so essential for the high school ages got missed.
Yeah.
And which I think has a huge impact on mental health.
100%.
So getting people together, getting their physical bodies moving, getting endorphins up is essential to mental health healing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's being encouraged enough. We're talking mental health. They need to talk. But they also need to move.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's get people moving again. Now, that being said, the trends will be, I think, in community fitness.
Right.
I think people are getting more back to organized fitness, hockey, soccer, volleyball, more group sports management kind of concepts, I think, are coming strong. Yeah. Getting people moving again is essential. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. What about if you have a student kind of thinking about coming into this field, what would you advise them? What would be your best piece of advice?
In the fitness field?
Absolutely.
You got to love it.
So love it. What else? What else would you advise students coming into this field?
Love it. It's a passion thing. You got to be passionate about it. If you're coming to college because you need to take a course, take your time and figure out who you are first. Now, I say that, and I don't know if I did that, to be perfectly honest. I was more like a pinball educational career. Yeah. If you're passionate about fitness, exercise, and sport, it'll work out for you, but you got to be passionate. You got to figure out what you're passionate about, because passion creates long-term career. It creates the journey.
Right. It's like an anchor or a compass. Like you might go a little off track this way or that way, but it keeps
it's always gonna
it called you back.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've tried, but I can't get out, kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Wonderful.
So you've got to be passionate about sport and exercise in order to do well in this career, because it is a physical, most days it is a very normal, people talk in steps, I talk in kilometers. Most days I put 14 kilometers on my feet. Wow. Just in the gym. That's before I go do the things I like to do. Right. I do tennis, I do line dancing, I teach Pilates 3 times a week. I do spin cycle in the water. Wow. I do stained glass for just something different. Wow. So I have all these other interests, which I never had time as a single mom, and I never had time during my master's to do. Yeah. So I'm loving that part of my life. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Do you have any last words or, closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. Well, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in without the wonderful people that have encouraged me, that have mentored me all this time. I currently work with an amazing part-time faculty staff with Christina, Ivana, and Matt, and Paul, and Chris.
Get them all in there.
All of them in there, right? And they are all parts of Dwayne now. Yeah. They're all parts. The people I've met in my career, Dwayne Shedd especially, huge impact. Yes. I have a wonderful support staff. I have an amazing family, Scott and Alicia, and they have amazing spouses, Rachel and Devin, and I have the best grandchildren.
Oh, I can't wait for that to happen to me.
Passion. Little Nolan, Molly, McKenna, Thomas, and newest to the package is Carson. He's only 8 weeks.
Wow.
They are... grandbabies are the best. I should have had them first.
I wish I could too.
Exactly.
My turn is coming. Not quite yet, but coming.
So, and I think I was blessed to have my own personal angel, little Danny. And all those students that have raised money actually for Dodgeball for Danny over the years. It's something I didn't talk about. I'm going to throw that in here as a little pitch.
It's wonderful.
Our APS, Advanced Police Foundation students, have raised money called Dodgeball for Danny for at least 15 years. And the money goes to the Sunshine Foundation.
Wonderful.
And it gets sick kids on a flight to Disney for the day.
Yeah.
And they have continually raised money in memory of my son.
That's wonderful.
For so many years. And I'm so proud of my Advanced Police Foundation students for doing that.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that is such an honor. Wow.
Yeah, it is an honor. It's an honor to a little boy who they never met.
Yep.
Who passed away at 4 years old, right? And they never met him. And what they do for him, they raise thousands and thousands of dollars and get kids on a plane down to Disney. That's,
amazing.
That's a career high for me that continually happens.
Yeah. You are amazing.
Once again, I'm like, well, I don't know what to do with that word.
Just, you know what I'm going to say? Take it on, own it, love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Wow, what a great conversation. Thank you for listening to this episode of Let's Talk Careers. If you liked this episode and want to hear more, follow us on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. See you in the next one.